So thank you all again for coming and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Hope everybody had a good, safe, enjoyable time, and we'll continue for this next week and onward and have a good year and everything. So thanks to the people on YouTube, and so we'll continue tonight with the closing of the womb door, and Bernie's going to start with the opening prayers.
Okay, I will do the opening prayers once in English and then twice in Tibetan. I hope that doesn't bother anyone, but here we go. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye Chodam Soki Chognam La Jiangchu Bardo Dagni Kyausu Chi Dagi Jinso Ki Pe Sonam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Dropar Shok Sangye Chodan Soki Chognam La Jiangchu Bardo Dagni Kyausu Chi Dagi Jinso Ki Pe Sonam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Drupar Shor. The Four Measurables. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness in the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separate from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manang kadang ya pe sem chen tam che, de wa dang de wei gyu dang den par gyu chi. Duk nyao dang duk nyao gi gyu dang dro wa gyu chi. Duk nyao me pe de wa dang mi dro wa gyu chi. Ye ring chang dang mi dang dro wei dang yom la ne par gyu chi. Manang kadang ya pe sem chen tam che, de wa dang de wei gyu dang den par gyu chi. Duk nyao dang duk nyao gi gyu dang dro wa gyu chi. Duk nyao me pe de wa dang mi dro wa gyu chi. Ye ring chang dang ni dang dro wei dang yong la ne rip la par gyu chi. And now we are going to go to page 14 in the Bardo Thodol, the natural liberation of habitual tendencies, purification. Om Ahum Bodhicitta Ma Sukha Jnana Dhatu Ah Om Ahum Bodhicitta Ma Sukha Jnana Dhatu Ah Om Ahum Bodhicitta Ma Sukha Jnana Dhatu Ah Om Rulu Rulu Hum Byo Hum Om Rulu Rulu Hum Byo Hum Om Rulu Rulu Hum Byo Hum. From the field of reality, its expanse, uncreated and pure, within the celestial palace, which is the seminal point of light, pure, unceasing, and radiant, through the natural expressive power of one's own mind, uncontrived and empty. Intrinsic awareness, radiant and empty, arises in the form of Vajrasattva, seated upon a bejeweled throne, adorned with lotus, sun, and moon cushions. The right hand holds a Vajra at the heart, symbolizing the union of awareness, of absolute wisdom and emptiness. The left hand supports a bell resting on the hip, symbolizing the union of wisdom, appearance, and emptiness. And the head is adorned with a garland of perfect Buddhas, representing the five families of the thus gone to bliss. Thus, Vajrasattva manifests in the form of Buddha body, a perfect resource, exquisitely adorned with silks and jewels, seated in the posture of royal ease, with the right leg extended and the left drawn in, radiating as the heart of the seed syllable Hum, surrounded by the 100-syllable mantra. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dishtadrida Me Baba Sutokaya Me Baba Sutokaya Me Baba Anurakta Me Baba Sarva Siddhi Mem Trayatsa Sarva Karma Sutsa Me Sisam Shriyam Kurupam Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Bajri Mame Mutsi Bajri Baba Mahasamaya Sattva Ah. Om Vansap Sata Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasapatenopa Tishtadrido Me Baba Sutokayo Me Baba Supokayo Me Baba Anurakta Me Baba Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sarva Karma Sutsa Me Sisam Shriyam Kuru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Bajri Mame Munta Bajri Baba Mahasamaya Sato Ah. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenupa Tishtadrido Me Baba Sutokaya Me Baba Supokaya Me Baba Anurakta Me Baba Sarva Siddhi Me Prayasa Sarva Karma Sutsame Sisam Shriyam Kuruham Aha Ha Ha Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tata Gata Bajri Mame Motsi Bajri Baba Mahasamaya Sattvo Ah.
Thank you very much. So we're going to go to page 191. And before we get started with that, does anybody have any comments that you'd like to make? Any questions you might have? Um,
Oh, I was interested in talking a little bit about that article you shared,
yes,
Georgia. I don't know, did everybody get a chance to read that?
I don't know. Which one was that? Was that the one on the Big Brain Wisdom AI channel?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was interesting. How'd you come across that?
Well, that's a conversation that I had with Gemini, with AI. So I was the questioner. So the Roman numerals were the questions that I put forth, or the comments that I put forth, and asked Gemini to give a response. So it's been really interesting to see Gemini and talk with Gemini like this, and it's it's been very helpful, I think, for myself, and that's why I wanted to share it with everybody. The Big Brain Wisdom is a YouTube channel, and I don't know how that popped up. Maybe I was looking for something and something to watch, and it popped up, and then on that channel they've got maybe a half a dozen, maybe even 10 or 12 different uh, presentations that are very, very interesting. So there was this one that in this conversation that I shared with everybody was its uh, explanation of the five poisons in terms of the four forces. And I thought that was very, very interesting. What did you think, Konga?
Well, I hadn't heard of that. I checked that out and I saw that had the YouTube channel, what that looked like. I haven't watched any of the videos. I thought the answers and the explanations were good. You know, those were, I think, that was what I was thinking in my head as far as how those imagery in the Bardo Thodol might be understood in relationship to how the mind works, as a way of looking at it from the perspective of neuroscience, I guess, and that idea of our memories and being mined for that, and the energies and habit energies versus, things that those. I thought that was all very interesting, and I didn't find anything in there that I felt like was went against what I was thinking about as we've introduced the Bardo Thodol. But I was wondering, do you recommend those videos then? And what do those videos look like? Are they just animated videos with a voiceover? That's what it sounded like they were.
Yes. And they're very, very good. I thought they were excellent.
It's pretty interesting. They basically said they look like AI generated content, even the voices and everything. So that'll be interesting to look at that. I'll have to check that out. Usually when I work out, I'll put something Buddhist on, either something to watch or something to listen to, and depending on what my workout is, I can watch stuff. So next time I'm on the bike, I'll put one of those videos on and check that out. Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I shared that article that you shared with me with another person I'm studying with, because they have a very scientific mind, and I felt like that whole analogy with computers and computer programming and the way our own mind works, that would be very interesting to them, to as a way of understanding. Because I think that they can see the world through that scientific lens easier than they can see the world through the mythological or maybe an Jungian archetype lens that we see in like the Bardo Thodol. That mythological lens is harder for some people to kind of reinterpret. They either have to like see it as literal or dismiss it. They have a hard time seeing it more open. Yeah, so thank you. I appreciated that.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm glad you got that. You have that opinion about that and so on. And I think that's one of the challenges that we all have. If we can say that we're kind of old school, and that these younger people and everything, they'll believe AI before they'll believe old school stuff. Which so this was coming together. So I was trying to get my questioning was to try and get to the core of that, and how much where is there progress in the AI generated way of looking at things. And I thought it was very interesting because in the AI generated thing, in the they call it the Big Bang Wisdom channel, Big Bang,
Big Bang or Big Brain?
Big Brain Wisdom channel on YouTube, and they talk about the four forces. So the four forces are what the five poisons that we're so familiar with, the way in which they motivate, in which they activate, and so on. So the four forces was the fear, was desire, and karma, and memory. Those were the four forces. And I had to read it several times. I had to read it, and I had to really kind of contemplate, meditate on it. and I got it, I think, because when I meditate, what is it that interrupts my meditation? Is it the five poisons? I always say, it's the five poisons, it's the combination, it's the emotions, it's our mental misconceptions or something like that. But this is making the point that it's one of the four forces. It's the fear of something that is about to happen or has happened or something. It's our desire, our attachments, and so on. It's the karma that's moving me in a direction, or it's the memory. And the memory, to me, seems to be the one that affects me more than anything else, because it's something that I haven't thought about, or something that keeps coming back to me, or something like that. So, and then in this paper that I sent everybody, it's the correlation between the four forces and the five poisons that really brings it up to date. Brings it contemporary into, and it's making the point of 21st century minds. And that's the way we've kind of structured this Buddha practice study, was to reach people in terms of 21st century minds. And so that's been interesting to me. I've been thinking a lot about that. What do you think, Konga?
At the very end about how you might develop your practice so you could better cope with the experiences of the Bardo, and it gave these little 5-minute exercises like, well, that might be something that we would like to think that maybe 5 minutes will help us, but really it's got to be a much more depth endeavor than little 5 minute thing here and there to make any difference.
Yeah. So I just finished another one of those conversations today, and if you like, I'll send it to you. And it has to do with the Dharma traps, the traps of the Dharmakaya in relation to the the King of Samadhi teachings, and that's very interesting. I mean, all this is very interesting, but I've been really enjoying these conversations, and and you know they talk about how how the difference between organic thinking and then the programming that goes into AI, and how that develops, but at the speed of light, very, very, very fast, faster than I can certainly think. And so the question comes up was, would human beings come to the conclusions that the AI can come to very, very quickly if given enough time? Because we program the AI, give it all this criteria, we ask the question, it processes it and so on. We're struggling with the question, otherwise we may not have ever asked it. But then once we ask it and so on, then they come back with an answer, and so you could say, well, would we organically have come to that conclusion ourselves? As
My
ordinary human beings.
my daughter was asking me if I ever used the AI for writing papers because I write essays for the newspaper and I write Dharma talks. And I said, no, I never use that. I don't think what the point would, because I want to write something that reflects my own personal perspective on the teachings. And so the AI could never have that perspective, because the AI has no idea what my perspective is. I could program it all day. It would never get that perspective. I mean, that's 57 years worth of experience, which are, I don't even know what all the influences are. So that would be the a problem with AI. I mean, AI can give you many perspectives consolidated, but it can't give you that unique individual's perspective,
Well,
which has been come out through these specific, through my karma, right?
well,
My
part of my
perspectives.
approach has been to give it my what I think it is, whatever thoughts going through my mind. I state what I'm thinking and ask it to comment on it.
Hmm.
And then you can narrow their response by saying, I want this to be relative to this, or that, or whatever, or let it run free and see what it comes up with. But I agree with you. I think it's important to be able to maintain our own organic way of thinking and so on, and not lose that. I think that's very important. But I've had years ago, when I was at Dharma Surya, and we were having Buddhism 101 there. And one night, a bunch of about 6 or 7 people came in, young people came in. And one of the guys there was really kind of challenging me on the issue of artificial intelligence. And this was maybe 10 years ago. And at that time, I had a very negative view of artificial intelligence. My opinions changed quite a bit. But at that time, I think I pissed him off or something because he got up and left. But that's how sensitive, people can be with any kind of issue. If you don't think like I do, well, I'm going to leave, kind of thing.
That's
But
right.
it's important for, I think, us as elders or whatever you want to say, to be able to meet the young people where they are now, and not take them for granted, and not take for granted that they're going to want to hear the old school approach to everything in Buddhism. Is there an evolution to it, to the Buddhism, that will speak to a younger generation?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Bernie, what
And
do
to,
you think of that? I know because Bernie's, very tuned into the computer.
Well,
Go ahead,
it's
Bernie.
the big unanswered question is, well, the artificial intelligence is returning answers which seem to reflect thought. But is that the same process that's going on in not only in human brains but in animal brains, or is it something different?
Well, it's a logic,
Because
isn't it?
no, it's not. Well, that's the whole point. It's not using logic to come up with the answers. It's using what they call a large language model. Essentially, it's hard to come up with an analogy. It's think of it as a kind of huge musical instrument where you play it by exciting various resonances, and you say something, and various what called reeds buzz, and they out of the reeds come the answer. Uh, the tune in this particular case. It's uh, it's 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 a quite a different. Well, I can't say whether it's different from how the human brain works because I don't really know how the human brain works, but it's certainly not working by logic, by any ordinary definition of the term logic. That's the whole difference between an earlier generation of artificial intelligence, which was rule based, which is kind of more like logic, and the modern system, which is just trying to compute uh, degrees of likeness between what you are asking and what is out there in the cloud as far as the information is concerned. So it's kind of it's more like the phenomenon of resonance than anything else. But that's kind of a pretty far-fetched analogy. But that's the closest thing I can think of off the top of my head.
French, do you have any comment? What do you have any opinion about artificial intelligence?
Uh, a little. I don't know enough about it. My understanding of it is that it is even today's responses, in my experience, appear to derive from a gigantic database, um, in our human terms, a nearly infinite database of data programs, and then combined with um, modeling of human conversation, human argumentation, and so on. All of this is fed into programs, computers. Um, I find sometimes interesting, and I've had a short conversation, which I'll send to you at some point, with ChatGPT. But in general, I find that certain questions, AI responses are like a rabbit hole. Um, Lots of thoughts, lots of thinking, lots of words. And my understanding, and unsuccessfully, my effort is to let the thoughts go, um, not go down the rabbit holes of thoughts and thinking. Even those, I have a few very simple philosophical guideposts. Um, One of the ones I like best is Ludwig Wittgenstein's statement concerning that of which we are unable to speak, we must pass over in silence. Um, and anyway, that's we all see things through our different lenses of education, culture. Older, more homogeneous cultures have very reliable stages of growth, which provide ways to see the world for members of that culture. It's different for us today, but nonetheless, whatever we see and think is through our own lens. And my understanding is that the ultimate goal is to not be trapped by thinking. But that's my limited understanding.
Well, very good. Thank you. I think you and maybe Kunga and Bernie too would enjoy this conversation that I had today with Gemini, and I'll send you a
I did look
transcript
at
of
it.
that.
I did not get beyond about page 7, but I only discovered it late today. But
Of the one that I sent last week.
yes, the
Yeah,
one you were just talking about, the big brain.
right. The big brain, and then there was another one that I did today that is exactly to the point of what you were just talking about.
I see.
So I'm going
Sure.
to I'll share that with you tonight or tomorrow, and you guys can look at it when you can.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I'm finding it very provocative. It's a good conversation.
Mhm.
I think it's I think it's healthy. I think it is good, and I'm beginning to see more about how the AI works and so on, going to what Bernie was saying and so on. Uh, and it is very, very interesting, and it doesn't it doesn't negate anything that we've been studying or becoming in our own right, through the Buddhism and so on. It actually supports it. All right, well, very good. Thank you. Does anybody else have any other comment you'd like to make to follow up? Okay. All right, well, then we're on this part 3. We're on the last part here, which is repeated for several days. This is choosing a womb entrance. So just to refresh everybody's mind, we've gone through the peaceful deities, we've gone through the wrathful deities and so on, and we have not been able to maintain the degree of freedom that we need to be able to remain in the bardo of reality. So we're moving ever closer to being reborn again, taking another body and so on. So the first part of part 3 was the elucidation of what this process is, just a broad overview of what this process is and so on. Then the second part was the obstruction of the womb entrance, to block any further becoming uniting with the sperm and an egg, and to become a being, whatever being that might be, and so on. So closing the womb entrance and being able to literally rescue ourselves and remain in the bardo of reality, if we could do that. But now we've come to the point where that has not worked. We're not able to do that. Now we have only left to choose our womb entrance, how it is that we are going to be reborn as a human being in this particular case and so on. So that's what this is, choosing a womb entrance. So, and the parallel that I'm always, refreshing everybody's mind on is that this process is the same process as we in the bardo of living are going through as we go through the meditative process, and that we are literally being reborn as we sit on the cushion, and then we take that rebirth, that new person that we are now with new experience, and we engage in the rest of phenomenal nature and so on with whatever wisdom, whatever experience that we have made while in that position on the cushion, and to change us and so on. So that, to me, is the main feature of what the Bardo Thodol is about. So that when we die, who knows, But we know that there is a cause and effect that we can make in this very life and so on, and we can be liberated in this very life. So now I'm going to recite from part 3, Choosing a Womb Entrance, page 191. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchok Pema Dorje, listen carefully. Even though many authentic introductions to the instructions have previously been given to you, up until this stage, you have not taken these to heart. Now, if you have been unable to obstruct the womb entrances, the time has actually come for you to assume a body. There are not just one, but several different kinds of profound and genuine instructions which relate to your choice of an appropriate womb entrance. So comprehend these well. Do not be distracted. Listen without distraction. Understand and maintain a firm intention. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje, if you are now to be born as a human, the indications and signs which relate to the environment into which you may be born on one amongst the 4 continents will arise. You must recognize these indications. Indeed, you must choose the continent based on a careful examination of these indications of the environment into which you may be born. If you are to take birth on the eastern continent, Vidya, you will see a lake adorned by male and female swans. Do not be drawn to this place. Call to mind the methods of reversal and apply these. For were you to go there, even though it is a happy and tranquil place, it is an environment where the sacred teachings do not flourish. So do not enter this continent. If you are to take birth in the southern continent, Zambupipa, you will see grand and delightful mansions. If indeed you can enter here, do so. If you are to take birth on the western continent, Aparagodanayana, you will see a lake adorned around its shores by male and female horses. Do not be drawn towards this place. Call to mind the methods of reversal and apply these. For even though it is a place of great wealth and abundant resources, it is an environment where the sacred teachings do not flourish, so do not enter this continent. If you are to take birth on the northern continent, Uttarakuru, you will see a lake adorned around its shores by cattle, or a lake adorned by trees. Recognize these appearances as indications of the birth that you are about to assume. Do not enter there, for even though this is a place where there is longevity and which has merit, it is an environment where the sacred teachings do not flourish. So do not enter this continent. If you are to take birth as a god, you will see delightful celestial palaces, many-storied and composed of diverse jewels. If indeed you can, you should enter here. If you are to take birth as an anti-god, you will see exquisite groves and spinning wood torches, creating wheels of fire. Do not enter there under any circumstances. Call to mind the methods of reversal and apply these. If you are to take birth as an animal, you will see rocky caverns, empty hollows, and straw sheds, shrouded by mist. Do not enter there. If you are to take birth as an anguished spirit, you will see tree stumps, black protruding silhouettes, blind, desolate gorges, or total darkness. Were you to go there, you would be born as an anguished spirit and experience the manifold sufferings of insatiable hunger and thirst. Do not enter there. Call to mind the methods of reversal and apply these. Be courageous and strong. If you are to take birth as a hell being, you will hear the songs, the wailing songs of those of negative past actions, or quite simply you will feel powerless and compelled to enter, whereupon the perception will arise that you are moving into a land of darkness, where there are black and reddened houses, black earth pits, and black roads. Were you to be drawn to this place, you would enter the hells and experience the searing, unbearable sufferings of heat and cold. Be careful. Do not enter into the midst of this, for there will be no opportunity to turn back. Do not enter there under any circumstances, as it is said in the root verses. You must obstruct the womb entrances and call to mind the methods of reversal. These are wholly necessary now. So just for a moment to go back and make a couple comments. If you have any questions, answer some questions. So if you look on page 191, page 192, you see on the artwork that is on each side of the text. So on page 191, you see the four continents, and you see Mount Sumeru, Mount Meru in the center, and at the very top would be, the realm of the Buddhas, and then that shaft, so on, would be of Mount Meru is where all the god beings are, where all the gods are, and then below that are where all the anti-gods would be, and so on like that. So, and then around you see the four quadrants, the four sections, and it's the east, the south, the west, and the north, and we are on Zambupipa, which is the southern continent, and it's shaped more or less like India. So this is a metaphor, this illustration is an ancient metaphor for what was known at the time. That they were in India, and India had that particular shape to it. From the east, the sun's coming up, had certain characteristics about it, but it wasn't a suitable place to be reborn. And Zambupipa is the most opportune place to be able to receive the teachings of the Dharma and become a Buddha ourselves and so on. So it continually emphasizes that. And in the West, there were beautiful places to go to, but at the same time, the Dharma wasn't being taught there. And the same with the North, that they weren't being taught there. So in the text, it goes into more detail, and we can talk about that a little bit later if you're interested. But you can see where the analogies and the metaphors here are based on life experience, and then they make it a spiritual experience through this Bardo Thodol transition that we go through. On the other side of the paper, on one side you see the four continents, on the other side is a constant reminder of the Om Mani Padme Hum Shri, with the colors and so on. So we are using these illustrations as a matter of being able to bring, one-pointed mindfulness, and then we are expressing that one-pointed mindfulness that cuts through all the myriad thoughts that we begin to develop with all this process and so on. We're cutting through this with the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. So this is a constant reminder to be able to do that. And each syllable has a light, and the light is targeted to, particular, uh, the six human realms, beings in the six human realms, which are us, and so to be able to help us develop. And the key point about Om Mani Padme Hung is, its general translation is "Behold the jewel in the lotus." So it's the mantra is the mantra of Avalokiteshvara, Shenreze, Mahakarunika, the great compassionate one. But we're taking on, we are finding ourselves, we are developing ourselves, we are cultivating ourselves to be the deity, to be Mahakarunika, to be Avalokiteshvara Shenreze, and so on, to be the jewel in the lotus. Om is the body, speech, and mind of the enlightened being. Mani is the jewel, and Padme is the lotus flower, and Hung is to make manifest in the heart wisdom. So this is the goal. This is what we are trying to do. So the mantra is the mind protection to help us to develop that one-pointed mindfulness of that transition, of that transference of consciousness that we ultimately go through when we pass. So these two illustrations on the at these sections are very important. Each one of these pages has a reference directly to whatever the text is on that particular page. So going back and looking at other pages, you can begin to assemble a visual context in which this is taking place. Any comments or questions? Okay.
I did a question.
Sure.
So it says several times, call to mind the methods of reversal and apply these.
Right.
Can you remind me what those are?
Well, we went through that last week, so let me see here. I'm not going to rely on my memory, but I made some notes about this. So the methods of reversal are, number one, to not allow yourself to get caught between the male and the female in union. We visualize them as as your teacher and consort. The second one was to visualize the spiritual teacher and consort as your personal meditational deity and his consort, wherever that might be. Then the third one was to reverse attachment and aversion to the father and mother, to not allow yourself to be drawn into that jealousy, to be drawn into that drama of being born, and knowing that if you're a male, there's going to be aversion towards the father, and there's going to be attraction towards the mother, and the opposite if you're born a woman. So to reverse attachment and aversion, hatred and desire. The fourth one was unreal and illusion-like nature of all phenomena, to recognize, to realize that all this is unreal, all this is illusory. This is all part of the mental body going through this. This is the memory aspect, and this is where AI was very helpful in being able to fine-tune this for 21st century mind, to make it relative to, our experience now, our contemporariness and everything. And that was a great realization on my part. So that was number 4, was to see this illusion-like, I've known about that for a long time, but to see how the memories are manifesting this. And then the last reversal was to meditate on our inner radiance, that we have Buddha nature, We are Buddha. We are the Dharma Dhatu. We are radiant. And to that and to um, develop our one-pointed mindfulness on that if all the other things have failed. So I think it's going um, from a more, lack of a better word, more of a practical, mundane reversal to what becomes the most abstract reversal, the most difficult kind of reversal. But again, we do these, we're doing this on the cushion. We're doing this in this Bardo of living now. So we have multiple opportunities to develop this mindfulness, this understanding of what this process is, and to constantly support ourselves, reinforce ourselves with our Dharma friends, with the Sangha, with our teachings and our practices. So we don't have to do this completely alone. We don't have to reinvent the wheel each time. We just have to recognize that there is a wheel there that we can learn about, that we can take this in. And I think this was the great gift of Buddha Shakyamuni, was to be able to introduce all of mankind to these ideas. And not that he was exclusive in this. There were other great masters and other traditions all around the world who were doing it in terms of their civilizations and societies and so on. And I think that's a fundamental point of equanimity. So does that answer your question?
Yes, I just had to go back and reread a little bit, and I see.
Okay.
I'm reminded. Thank you.
Okay, so now we go to page 196. So we're continuing through choosing a womb entrance. So it says, "O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchok Pema Dorje, although you do not wish to move forward, you are powerless not to do so. The avenging forces, who are the executors of the unfailing laws of cause and effect, will be pursuing you. You will have no choice but to move forward. Before you, the avengers and executors will be leading the way. The experience will arise of trying to flee from these forces, of trying to flee from the darkness, from the most violent windstorms, from the thunderous tumult, the snow, the rain, the hail, and the turbulent blizzards which swirl around you. Frightened, you will set off to seek a refuge, and you will find protection inside an enclosed space, such as within the mansions just described, or in rock shelters, or in holes in the ground, or amongst trees, or within the bud of a lotus flower. Hiding here, you will be very hesitant to come out, and you will think, I should not leave here now. You will be very reluctant to be separated from this protected place, and you will become utterly attached to it. Then, because you are very hesitant to go outside, where you will be confronted by fears and terrors of the intermediate state, you will, because of this fear and awe, continue to hide away. Thus you will assume a body, however utterly bad that may be, and you will in time come to experience all manner of sufferings. This experience of wanting to hide is a sign that you are being obstructed by malignant forces and carnivorous ogres. Particularly related to this stage, there is a profound oral instruction. Therefore, listen and understand. Before we go there, if we are on the Bodhisattva path, we become very familiar with this process. And part of our motivation to be reborn as a Bodhisattva, as one who is on that path, is to come for the benefit of the enlightenment of other beings. So we do not have to be subjected to the terror and the horror of having to select the womb and so on, we are willfully doing that. And by doing that, we're taking responsibility, and we are know that we are coming into this world, and that we are choosing what our path will be. So there is this whole, cognition of what the process is. And part of what we're doing by helping other beings is helping ourselves. But the primary thing that we have to put forward is that we are helping other beings. So despite the fact that we are coming into what is going to be a birth and a human birth, are we going to go into the human realm? Are we going to go into the demigod realm? Are we going to go into the God realm, the hungry ghost realm, the animal realm, or the hell realms? And being prepared for that. And just like the 6 sages that we went and we talked about, several weeks ago, we talked about the 6 sages. Those Buddhas, those Bodhisattvas, need to be in those realms, and they are developing the unattachment. They are developing the meditative skills. They are refining and purifying all those skills of being in those realms, of being amongst those people. They are developing them and being able to convey the method in which they do that to those beings. So we're being very, very, very useful. So we have to accept that that's part of what we're doing. We're going back to school, so to speak, and we're in a doctorate level, so to speak, and we're there to help other beings, and that in its process is helping us to purify ourselves even further so that we do become ultimately prepared to be able to make that leap, if you will, to becoming Buddha, to recognizing Buddha, to living life as a Buddha. So the way in which all that manifests is in the Bardo of living now. We do this on the cushion, and then we come off the cushion and we say, wow, I now know what my work is for the rest of my life. I need to start living like a bodhisattva. I now start needing to live my life as a Buddha. Whatever our ability is, to recognize that and not be, shying away from it for any reason, not being overwhelmed of fear or being arrogant about it, but willfully to be able to take on this responsibility of purifying ourselves and helping others to purify themselves. So now in the middle of page 197. At this time, when you are being pursued by avenging forces and you feel powerless to escape and you are terrified and frightened, you must in an instant and with perfect recall visualize the transcendent Lord Mahatara Haruka. So karma is moving us in a direction at this point, saying, being frightened by the avenging forces, you feel powerless to escape. This is the karma that you have no control over, that is moving you in this direction. See, but if you're on the path, if you're a bodhisattva, a Buddha, it's not an issue. Yeah, that's what I've been working for. I'm glad it's there. It's all part of me, who I am, and so on like that. But if you're fearful about that, and feel that you're being moved in directions that you don't necessarily want to go, then there's trouble there, and you've got to work through that. So, going back to the text, it says, to visualize the transcendent Lord Mahatara Haruka. So that's number 1. Then, or Hayagriva, that's number 2. Or Vajrapani, that's number 3. Or else, if you have one, your personal meditational deity. Visualize the deity as having a huge Buddha body with thick limbs, standing upright in a terrifying, wrathful manifestation which pulverizes every form of obstructing force. By virtue of this practice, insulated from the avengers, by the blessing and compassion of the meditational deity, you will secure the ability to choose a womb entrance. This is a profound and genuine crucial point of the oral instructions, so understand this now. So those that I mentioned, Lord Mahataraharuka, or Hayagriva, or Vajrapani, were all in the Bardo of reality. They were either the peaceful deities, they were the wrathful deities, they were the Haruka class, or they were the gatekeepers. In the case of Hayagriva and Vajrapani, they were gatekeepers. And Haruka is the wrathful Samantabhadra, is the fierce Samantabhadra, the primordial one. So putting these pieces of the puzzle together, you see, is what makes this practical. So now the middle of page 198. Moreover, O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje, the gods inhabiting the form realms of meditative concentration and similar beings of the higher realms take birth through the potency of their meditative stability. Also, certain classes of malevolent forces, including the anguished spirits, arise on the basis of the transformation of their mental body itself. During this very intermediate state, through a shift in their mode of perception. In this way, they assume the forms of an anguished spirit, malign force, or carnivorous ogre, capable of displaying diverse miraculous acts. So this is an elucidation of what I was trying to say to you. Page 199. The anguished spirits who reside in the ocean depths, the anguished spirits who move through space. So talking about the Mahatara and the Bhaskachi and the Ishvara deities who reside in the ocean depths, who move through space, the 80,000 classes of obstructing forces, all the afflictive emotions. Here it's saying 80,000, but 84,000. Whatever particular scripture you've read and how they define that, of the obstructing forces and so forth, all come into existence consequent on such a shift in their mode of perception while still in the mental body. So it's up to each one of us to be able to experience this, to realize this, and to be able to work with this, to apply the antidotes, to purify ourselves on the cushion, so that when we go through this bardo of death, we just go right through. We just, a metaphor would be, we just sail right through to whatever point that, we have prepared ourselves to go to. If it's not to remain as a bardo reality being, to be a Buddha, to be a bodhisattva, or to be able to remain there for what we might say is eons. We might stay with Amitabha, for sake of discussion, let's say for 4 eons. How long's an eon? A couple thousand years. So for 10,000 years, a human life, we may remain with Buddha Amitabha or any of the other Buddhas. But then, because we're not a perfected Buddha, we're a bodhisattva. Now, after those 10,000 years, now it's time to reincarnate. Now we take all that merit, we take all that wisdom, we take all that love and compassion, all that bodhicitta that we have been able to develop and to abide in during those 10,000 years, and now it comes time to share that again with beings in the world as we know it now. So this is an analogy. So you have to let your imagination, take a role in your process. We can't rely completely on the intelligence. We can't rely on the technology. We have to rely on that intuition. We have to rely on that imagination that is beyond anything that can be categorized and so on like that. So now in the middle of 199, it says, "At this time, therefore, while visualizing the wrathful, fierce deity, number one, it is essential that you hold in mind the meaning of emptiness, the essence of the Great Seal, the Mahamudra. If you are not able to practice in this way, then two, you must cultivate clarity, your experience of the illusion-like natural expressive power of actual reality. If you are unable even to practice in that way, then three, you should meditate on birthlessness, on the meditation of the illusion-like natural expressive power of actual reality. If you are unable to practice in that way, or I'm repeating myself, if you are unable to practice in that way, three, you should meditate on the birthlessness, on the meditational deity, Mahakarunika, without allowing your mind to experience attachment in any respect whatsoever. Through practicing this effectively, Buddhahood will be attained in the Buddha body of perfect resource during the intermediate state." So the three qualities of Mahamudra. Mahamudra is the state of the Buddha mind. Clear. Clarity is one. Unimpededness is two. And three is birthlessness or emptiness. Emptiness and unimpededness. So these words all are interlocked with each other and so on. But it's a point of clarity, of being able to recognize clearly, being able to understand emptiness, and being understand the impededness of all this, the all-pervasive wisdom of all of this. So this last line again on page 29. "Through practicing this effectively, Buddhahood will be attained in the Buddha body of perfect resource during the intermediate state." So in this intermediate state of now of being born again, of taking a womb, this is what's inevitable here, is the being born, but being born as a bodhisattva. What level bodhisattva that might be, is certainly a question. But it's on that path because you're entering this body with a fully developed Mahamudra. So now it's coming into life again, coming into a body with that. It may take 20 years, it may take 25 of our ordinary human years for us to recognize that. It may not. It may be readily apparent. And if we choose our parents wisely, then they will recognize that. They will recognize what is happening, what they are giving birth to, and they will help you to develop, your stability in that as a human being and guide you through all the vicissitudes and all the temptations and all the corruptions and so on, so that Mahamudra is not disturbed, and you're able to recognize all things as being on the path of Mahamudra. So, so you see again this interconnection of what we're doing now in this life and the bearing that it has in whatever future life we may have. So now page 200. "O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Konchok Bema Dorje, if due to the potency of your past actions, you must at this stage enter a womb, a further teaching on the methods of choosing a womb entrance is now to be taught. Therefore, listen carefully. Do not just move towards whatever womb entrance appears to you. If whilst being pursued by the avenging forces of the laws and cause and effect, You are powerless and unable to resist the process of entering a womb. Then you must, at this time, meditate on Hayagriva. Since you now possess a subtle supernormal cognitive ability, you will clearly apprehend all the potential birthplaces as they arise, in sequence. Therefore, make your choice based on the examination of the indications and based on the instructions. You can use those mandalas that I sent to you. You have the peaceful mandala and you have the wrathful, fierce mandala. And in those courtyards are where Hayagriva and Vajrapani are, and in the main quadrants is where the Buddhas are, and the Haruka class are, and so on. So you can go back and you can look it up and see, what does Hayagriva mean? Go back and use those devices that, we developed for you to help you to do that. If you've got the book, you can look it up in the book.
Yeah, thank you.
There's two appendices in the book, the Bardo Thodol, by Gourmet Dorje, where the information has come from, to be able to put those charts together, those mandalas together. Not all the information, but a lot of it. So you've got the resources, is my point, to be able to cross references and really develop your understanding of this to a much greater detail. Therefore, make your choice based on the examination of the indications and based on the instructions. So going through all this again. There are two kinds of oral instructions which now can be applied. First, the oral instructions for transferring the consciousness to the pure Buddha fields. And second, the instructions for choosing a womb entrance within impure cyclic existence. Therefore, listen carefully and do as follows. Choice number 1. The transference of consciousness to the utterly pure realms of the skyfarers is effected by those of the highest ability by directing their intentions as follows. Alas, I am deeply sad that even after an infinite incalculable eon, I am still left behind in this swamp of cyclic existence. How dreadful it is that while so many have attained Buddhahood in the past, I have still not achieved liberation. Now the cycle of existence disgusts me. It horrifies me. I have long been led astray by it. Now the moment approaches for me to move forward. Now I must take birth, miraculously, in the bud of a lotus flower, in the presence of the Buddha Amitabha, in the western Buddha field of the blissful Sukhavati. And then we repeat this 3 times. But now we just recite, focus your attention concentratedly on this thought. It is essential that you make this effort. Alternatively, you may focus your attention on whichever Buddha field you wish, on manifest joy, abharati, and so on. So the point here is that the skyfarers are represented in the Sambhogakaya by the Vidyadhara, the hero awareness holders. If you remember, there were 5 male and 5 female, and they were dancing and moving about, in the human realm and so on, and they are representing the purification of the habitual tendencies. They reside within the throat. The fierce deities were in the brain, and the peaceful deities were in the heart, and the hero awareness holders were in the throat. And they are indicated by your thoughts and your actions, your habitual tendencies that need to be purified. So here it's saying that you can do this, and you can go back to what is the the Poa experience, of ejecting the consciousness, to Amitabha or to whatever your meditational deity is. It doesn't have to be Amitabha. It could be Ascobia, it could be Ratnasambhava, Amagog City, and so on. Ascobia, did I say that? So it could be any one of the five wisdom Buddhas and so on. Going back to the peaceful, going back to the level of the peaceful and so on. So it's showing that there is this feedback loop, there is this loop that we can go back to and so on. So focus your attention concentratedly on this thought. It is essential you make this effort. Alternatively, you can focus your attention on whichever Buddha field you wish, on manifest joy, Abharati, which is Ascobia, on dense array, which is Varanchana, and Kanista, on Alakavati, which is Ratnasambhava, or in Mount Potalalaka, which is Amagoga City. So you can see that knowing these combinations, knowing the way these things all work and so on, is helping the mind develop this one-pointed mindfulness on what are this narrative, this story of being able to purify ourselves, to keep our attention on this Sambhogaya, on this meditational field of the display of the Absolute. And we're doing this with the help of the Nirmanakaya, of the teachers, of the Buddha, of those human beings who are helping us to understand the meditative process, the meditative deities, the Sambhogaya and so on, so that with both those help, we're moving ourselves to be able to be the embodiment of the Absolute. It says, or you may wish to focus on coming into the presence of Padmasambhava of Udayana. All this text comes from Padmasambhava of Udayana. So the visualization here is the miraculous rebirth on a lotus. That's what lotus born. That's what Padmasambhava means. His name means that we on the cushion. That cushion is a lotus cushion, and that we are being reborn on that lotus cushion now as a more perfect human being. Every time we do a meditation, we have the potential to continually do that. In the celestial palace of lotus light, or indeed whichever Buddha field you wish to enter, be single-minded. Do not be distracted. Immediately upon establishing this intention, you will take birth in the chosen Buddha field. So it's saying if you've done the work, you'll have the result. And you'll recognize that. When we talk about the three faiths, we talk about the trusting faith, the yearning faith, and the clear faith. We're talking about that in the very beginning of realizing that we are a precious human being and so on, that we have a yearning for this perfection, to be this Buddha, to be one with the non-conceptual, and that we trust that there is teachings, that there is teachers to help us to recognize that, and that we have clear faith because we have experienced it, because it's just not vicarious experience. It's actual experiences of our entering into the practices, entering into the meditation, which then catapults us, into that which we call the Absolute. So then with that, we come back into our ordinary state, but now with a real sense of the experience of what that is, what that was, and so on. And we carry on with that. And we work on that, and we're doing it for the benefit of other beings. We're not holding it inside. We are sharing it with other beings immediately. If we hold on to it, it tends to get corrupted. We tend to get conceited. We tend to get arrogant, and so on. But if we share it immediately, and even if it's not perfect in terms of what we might consider the absolute to be, but we're making the attempt. Our intention is pure. That's enough. And that's what we need to do. Whatever time we have left, that becomes our work. So then, in the middle of page 202, it says, yet again, alternatively, if you wish to proceed into the presence of Maitreya in the realm of the joyful Tushita, think as follows. Alas, at this juncture in the intermediate state, the moment has come for me to proceed into the presence of the king of the sacred teachings, Maitreya, in the realm of the joyful. Therefore it is there that I will go. So this, to me, is this is the future Buddha. If we still have work to do, but we're ever so close. We feel ever so close. And if we go into the Bardo of reality, and we're able to take whatever energy we have and consolidate that with each other's energy, but more importantly, with the energy that we call Maitreya, the future Buddha. If we do that, then all that energy coalesces and becomes reborn as Maitreya. Maitreya is just not one being. Maitreya is all this entirety. We are all this entirety. But we don't have the benefit of the level of perfection that Maitreya has. But if we surrender to that, if we aspire to that, if we develop the one-pointed mindfulness of that, this is a way in which we come back as a great, great teacher. And the teachers are steeped in the understanding of what dualistic nature is, in order that they may help other beings to navigate through that, but they are also steeped in the absolute, that which is, escapes us to whatever degree we allow it to. We have it within us, we can be wholly that. But for most of us, it escapes us at some point. So by aspiring to be reborn as Maitreya is an extremely noble and doable motivation. It may be, eons before that comes to pass when Maitreya takes another body. It's said in the sutras that Maitreya will come when Shakyamuni Buddha's teachings have gone away. So to whatever degree that is, then Maitreya will materialize, and with the energy of all those earthly beings, all those ordinary beings who have been able to coalesce with Maitreya. So it's a mind-bending process, but one that has no harm in it and may have great power and virtue in it. So now page 203. If you focus your intention on this thought, the thought of Maitreya, you will take birth miraculously in the heart of a lotus in the presence of Maitreya. And remember, it's from there that Shakyamuni Buddha came from. As he was a bodhisattva, as it says in the Lalita Sutra, that he was a bodhisattva in Tushita heaven, And then when the time was right, he manifested to be born on this plane and so on. And it's there that he went to go back and teach the gods and his mother back on Tushita, and then came back again to this world to continue teaching to ordinary beings and so on. So then alternatively, there is choice number two. So that was choice number one, was to one single-pointedly, focus on the Bardo of reality, Bardo on the Buddhas, on the Bodhisattvas to become Buddhas and so on like that. Now, alternatively, choice number two. If you are unable to accomplish this transference, or if you desire to enter a womb, or you are obliged to enter one, then here are the following instructions on choosing a womb entrance within impure cyclic existence. Enter one. Therefore, listen carefully. Utilizing the supernormal cognitive ability which you now possess, examine the continents once again, as just described, and make your choice. You must enter a land where the sacred teachings flourish. Be warned, however, it could be that, in reality, you are about to take birth by entering into a substance that is fetid and polluted, and yet that filthy mass will be perceived by you as sweet-smelling, and you will be drawn towards it and take birth within it. Therefore, whatever attractive appearances may arise, do not grasp at them as substantially real. As you enter the womb, page 204, ensure that you remain utterly free. Ensure that you remain utterly free from the symptoms of attachment and aversion, and on that basis choose an excellent womb entrance. It is extremely important that your motivation is firmly concentrated. As you approach the womb entrance, therefore think as follows. For the sake of all sentient beings, I shall be born as a universal monarch, or acting purely like a great dignified sal tree, I shall be born as the Brahma class, or as a child of an accomplished master, or into a family which maintains an immaculate lineage of the sacred teachings, or into a family where the mother and father are deeply devout. Then, once I have taken on a body which is blessed with the merit of being able to act on their behalf, I must concentrate my motivation on this thought, and thus enter the womb. So the point here is that we think that we're going into a great noble birth, but we miscalculated in some way, and we're being born into an ordinary being again, and we have to go through the whole process of a womb birth. We have to go through the whole process of being trained by our family and all those things, and it's a fetid, unpleasant experience. But we have to meet that experience with all the merit that we have to get to this point. We can't allow ourselves to be crushed by this inability to have such a noble birth that we wanted to have as a bodhisattva or as a Buddha. We have to say, okay, this is my work now. This is my cross to bear. This is what I've got to do, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it with dignity. I'm going to do it with power, and I'm going to do it with one-pointed intention to be able to help other beings. So now, page 205. As you enter the womb, consecrate it by perceiving it as a celestial palace of the deities. Be full of devotion. Ensure that you enter whilst praying to and imagining that you are receiving empowerments from the conquerors of the 10 directions and from their sons, as well as from the meditational deities, and in particular from Mahakarunika. However, be warned, for as you make this choice of a womb entrance, there is a risk of error. There is a risk of error that when through the potency of past actions, an excellent womb may be perceived as a bad one, and when a bad womb entrance is perceived as a good one. At this time, the essential points of the teachings are crucial. Therefore, once again, you should act as follows. Even though perception of an excellent womb entrance may occur, do not become attached to these. And conversely, even though perceptions of a poor womb entrance may occur, do not feel aversion. The essential point of the profound and genuine instructions is that you enter the womb in a state of great equanimity, utterly free from the dichotomies of good and bad, acceptance and rejection, or attachment and aversion. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje, if you do not now know how to choose a womb entrance, and you are unable to take up your attachment, if you are unable to give up your attachment and your aversion, then regardless of which of the above appearances arise, you must call out by name to the 3 precious jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Take refuge in them. Pray to Mahakarunika. Go forward with your head held high. Recognize that this is the intermediate state. Give up your attachments and your clinging to the friends, sons, daughters, and relatives that you have left behind. These attachments and your clinging are not helpful to you now. Enter into the blue light of the human realm. Enter into the white light of the realm of the gods. Enter into the mansions of precious jewels and the gardens of delight. So there it is. On the meditation cushion, when you have a true meditation, all the ego is gone, the body is gone, the intellect is gone. And as you come back into your ordinary body, so to speak, that mental body comes back, you say, oh my goodness, I'm still here. And all this of what was just explained comes real. Oh, I'm the one that still has to go do all these things. I'm the one who still gets sick. I'm the one who is getting old. I am the one who's going to die. I am the one who's going to have to face all these fears and confusions and desires and so on like that. And how prepared, excuse me, how prepared am I for this? How liberated am I? And you hold your head up high and you say, I will do the best that I can. I will have compassion for myself by having compassion for others. I can't have compassion for myself without having compassion for others. That would be selfish. That flies totally in the face of bodhicitta. So this life that we have, this precious human life, is priceless in this way. And even if it's not true, it beats a blank. So what do you think? Excuse me.
Well, I have a question about not any particular one point, but the whole thrust of this whole text seems to be that through your what you do in the Bardo can definitely decide where you're going to be reborn. Isn't there kind of a conflict there with the idea that where you're reborn is set by your karma? It's like it's saying, well, karma doesn't count so much because we can change everything just by these practices while you're in the Bardo.
Well, that's exactly right. And that's the whole point of understanding karma and the Elias storehouse consciousness. You know, that's a trap.
What I don't understand. What's a trap?
Karma.
Karma is a trap, of course, sure,
Phenomena. Phenomena is a
but
trap. The
but
Elias consciousness is a trap. And what do we do to avoid the trap? Here is a
okay,
method. Here are methods to be able to purify the traps.
well, of course, okay. Let's put it this way. Uh, when you talk about some law, you're talking about something that's invariable, something that can't be changed, like the law of gravity. If suddenly I open the window and step outside the window, I'm going to fall to the ground.
Right.
And but you're saying karma isn't fixed to that extent that you can change it. The
Right.
results of karma by are you really changing it, or are you just delaying it for some other future life further down the road, or what?
You're cutting off the attachment. You know, that's the whole
Well,
point of Vajrayogini. You know, and she's got the hooked knife, you know, and she's
okay.
cutting off the roots of all those attachments.
Well, it's
It's
nice to be
it's
talking.
it
It's
you
nice to be talking about that, but it's not so easy to do. I mean,
no, it's not. And
when
you'll enjoy reading this paper that I'm going to send to you.
okay, okay. So yeah, but it's making it sound like all you have to do is recite. Well, if they do this, then the question is the average person going to be able to do that in the Bardo or not?
Well, of course not. You know, but those who can will. And
Okay.
we have to decide for ourselves, are we going to be one of those type of people, you know? Are we going to be able to purify ourselves to that point? And for what reason do we do that? For the benefit of other beings. You know, the entirety of what the Buddhas represent is the work of body, speech, and mind for the benefit of the enlightenment of all sentient beings. That becomes like you know, the, the, the modus operandi of what everything that we do.
Good. Well, I'm just saying this is how it struck me while I was listening to the talk tonight because it's talking about deciding where you're going to be reborn, whereas typically it's usually considered that that's set by karma. But
Indeed, and that's the question
yeah,
I originally imposed. You know, when I started the conversation today, was, you know, that a lot of this, you know, flies in the face of the teaching of the King of Samadhi. But
mhm.
we have to use compassion to in order to be able to understand compassion. Compassion is an activity, and we have to engage in the conversation of that activity, ultimately to let it go.
Okay. Well, thank you for your answer.
Certainly. Tunga, what do you think?
Um, in responding to Bernie's statement, so the way I think of karma is that my actions right now are influencing what will happen in the future. My actions in the past are influencing what is happening right now. So, coming in contact with this text now, the how I take that forward now is going to affect my ability to use that text at the time of death. if I, that's how it becomes effective. It becomes effective right now by me relating to it right now, and then, building on that so that those activities become my karma at the time of death. If I were just exposed to this text now and died tonight, I think the my ability to utilize the benefit of the text will be limited, you know. But having introduced it now and say dying 10 years from now, and in continuing to use this text in my practice in some way and try to build on the ideas introduced in the text, will make it more likely that this text will be valuable at the time of death. Those decisions, I'll be able to make those decisions. They'll be part of my karma because I've incorporated that mindset early on, and I've been practicing with it. It's become part of my habitual tendencies.
There'll be fewer decisions to make.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But yeah, it's limited to just show this to someone at the deathbed, right? It's limited to read this to them.
Not for that. Yeah.
To read to this someone when we're reading this to them after they've already passed on, and we're trying to help them make a difference. They would really have to have some positive karma in the past that would really help them. If their karma, their past actions hadn't really been leading them very much in this direction, you would think that the ability for them to make decisions based on it would be very limited.
Well, it's true in its grossest form, but you can meet many people, and you know this probably better than any of us because you work in this, but there are many spiritual people that wind up in the hospice, and at this level it becomes a language of light, and it doesn't matter whether you're Buddhist or Hindu or Christian or Jewish or whatever. And if you are reciting this, or what you're doing is you're focusing your energy to the level of light to be able to present to that being that you're thinking of, to guide them through their experience of light. So not everybody's going to understand that. Not everybody's going to respond to that. Most people certainly aren't going to recognize that light, but they're going to be subjected to the light, and whether or not it makes you feel better or you think it makes them feel better becomes motive enough, I think, to carry on this practice recitation as much as you can, and so on.
I think many people, in my experience, maybe not, just as many come to it in a positive, embracing frame of mind as come to it in a fearful mind, or in a mind that doesn't want to even deal with the subject. They are completely ignorant about dying. And I think those behaviors are results of their actions from the past. They're their karma ripening, and those ones who are very open and embracing are going to have the kind of experience where they have a lot of options during the death process. And those who are fearful, or those who are completely ignorant, are just going to be propelled by the winds of change, and they're just going to end up in those states created by their fear or their ignorance. Very much like what it says in the Thodol. I can see that happening very easily.
Absolutely, yeah.
But that's because of their karma, their practices of life. Their practices of life have put them in that place. They've chose to take a practice in life or they've maybe, where they've incorporated spirituality into their life in a way that they're able to embrace the time of death, or they haven't, and they focused on other things. So when death hits them, they're completely unprepared and unaccepting. So,
in your role as a person who works in the hospice, center and so on, is there some kind of conversation that you have either with the person who is the resident of the who's dying, or with the family, to ascertain where they are spiritually, so you know how to approach them and so on, and to help them in a spiritual way? Or is there no spirituality and you just want to just be there for them and make them comfortable as you can? And that is, there some kind of a conversation that you have with the family or with that person?
As because I'm their social worker and not their spiritual care support, my conversation is more basic, but
So it's more practical.
I'm still assessing, where they are, and I try to support them. So if they're coming to it with a lot of fear, I try to provide them with information and with presence to diminish that fear. If they're coming to it with a lot of ignorance, I try to provide education at the level that they'll accept it without generating fear.
But if they ask for it, you're not pushing it on them.
Right. I just have to follow their lead.
Right. At that point,
because
you're
otherwise
not
it makes it worse. It makes it worse, right?
You're not going to change anybody. You're just going to comfort them.
Right. And if they have a lot of spiritual support, then I encourage them to talk about that spiritual viewpoint, and as much as they're open to, and trying to go there with them wherever I can.
Right. Exactly. And for ourselves, that's what we're doing for ourselves. So to the degree that we, take this to heart, are we preparing ourselves for this, and do we indeed need to have this recited for us, or will we be able to go through the Bardo of death and not even recognize that we did go through the Bardo of death? There's a section in here, if you remember, way back when we started, there was a section here when you're dying, when you're going through that Bardo of death, and there's a couple pages. If you are a holy being, if you are someone who has spent your life, or a great deal of your life, or some part of your life, and has come to a lot of realization, who is in the Mahamudra state, there's 1 or 2 pages to be read for that person going through that. And whether or not, you as a reader, if you're reciting that for them, whether you even comprehend what they're going through, because they're much higher than you. That's why you always want to have, a person who is reciting this be of the highest attainment as possible, because they will have experienced this at the Bardo of living level, that they have prepared themselves for this. The person that they're reading it for, and the person who is going through the experience, is going to be is going to recognize that. Then all the rest of this, you're done. All you got to do is read those couple pages, and all this other stuff is just for the Sangha, is for the family, is for the people that are surrounding them, to comfort them. That person is gone. So I like to say, that you go through the Bardo of death and didn't even recognize it. That's what you did. You didn't even recognize it. You dropped your body. Have you had that level post-meditation? Because that's what it is. That your meditation, your post-meditation, is at that level, is the Mahayana level, or excuse me, the Mahamudra level, or the Dzogchen level. French, do you want to comment? Oh, you're muted. I'm sorry, did you want to say?
I'm just going to study it.
Okay. Well, I'd like to, continue this and go back to, because we skipped over the part of the recitation that is the peaceful deities and the wrathful deities and so on. We skipped over that. We went through the study of what they represent, but how it's applied in the Bardo, we haven't been through. And there's a number of prayers, there's a number of visualizations that will now, I think have much greater meaning to you. So that's what I would like to continue with. We can continue it very quickly by, maybe in a couple, 3 sessions by just reading through it and just answering questions, or we can read and have a discussion and so on like that. But I think this whole, what we've been going through, it would be proper to go and do this. It would complete the discussion that we've had. Because I don't know, to be perfectly honest, I don't know that you're going to do it on your own. And I feel responsible to give you the full benefit of the Bardo Thodol. I don't know what you think about that, but that's how I think about it. I think that once you engage, once we start, we got to do it wholeheartedly.
So, Pema Dorje, you talked about or you sent an email about the Jewel Ornamental Liberation class starting not this Thursday, but the following Thursday?
Right.
And is that going to be from 7 to 9?
Probably be prepared for that. The group there's about 5 people that I've been talking to who are young people who have no Buddhist experience but want to have Buddhist experience. So I'm designing this around them.
Mm-hmm.
And, their attention span may be an hour and a half. But I've also, I made the point that, sometimes with question and answer that we encourage, it can take 2 hours. And I don't want to be so rigid that we have to shut it down at 8:30, because I've been doing 2 hours for 20 years and it's always worked. Mm-hmm.
So I was going to put that flyer up at the temple.
Okay.
And put it in our newsletter. I don't know if we'll get anybody who's interested or not. But I also would like to attend that because even though I read the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, I haven't ever participated in the study of it. Because the Tibetan practice of Buddhism is still relatively new to me. I've only been studying it with you for a couple of years now. But my schedule is limited. I can't add another 2-hour night per week. So my plan was to switch my Monday participation to Thursday participation next week and start, just to participate with that group.
Well, I appreciate that. And, we're going to record whatever we do on both nights. Mm-hmm. So if there's times when you miss, there might be other times where you can carve out to watch what you've missed on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Because I think, because like I just said, I think, you would have great benefit by going through the rest of this text. And I would like you to be at the first part of the JOL, so that's a way to accomplish both things.
My feeling about the Bardo Thodol is I'm been doing the Nundro for the last year. I watched all the videos on your explanation on how to do that, and I've incorporated that. So I do that. I spend about 2 hours doing that every morning, Monday through Friday, anyways.
Well, that's great.
So I just don't have another. Can't add another practice. I feel like that practice is
what, the Bardo Thodol?
No, the Nundro. I'm doing the Nundro practice. I've been doing that for 2 hours every morning.
I understand that. You say you want to let that go?
No, I don't want to let that go, but so that's why I don't really have time to.
Well, what's the other practice?
The one we're talking about right now, the Bardo Thodol. Yeah.
Well, and I appreciate that, and I would encourage you to finish the Nundro. And then maybe, once a year or something like that, refresh your time with this.
Hmm.
If someone passes that is close to you, and whether you're in their presence or not does not make a difference. But if you were to read this, recite this from beginning to end, make that kind of a commitment to that person that you love, and you want to guide to whatever degree you can do that, I think that you will be making connections that will guide you in the way that you're going to move forward with this. You have, the rest of your life, and hopefully you'll live to be 100 or more, and you'll have plenty of opportunity, and we have to be optimistic about that.
Hmm. Sure, sure.
So I think that's a way of being practical about it.
Thank you.
Every time I think I'm done, doing this, because I got almost every night, well, 4 nights a week now, and plus Sunday, and somebody new always pops up. And this time, it's 5 people, who are in the medical community, and that really resonates with me. So I say, great, the work continues.
Yeah, that's great. I'm excited to have an opportunity because I didn't join this group till you already done a discussing the dual ornamental liberation. You were.
Well, we've done it many times.
Hmm.
Good. Well, I think, we've recited the concluding daily prayers a number of times, and I hope you recognize the value of those. Excuse me. We only have a few minutes left, so there's no point in starting to recite those right now when you can recite them on your own if you want, and I would encourage that. I've recited this many times for many people that I know, and maybe just acquaintances or people that were introduced to me when they died or something like that. So I've done this many times, and I'm always empowered every time I enter into this recitation and practice and contemplation and meditation on this. There's nothing like it. So if you want to recite something on your own, please do. In the meantime, we'll just recite our dedication. So, Bernie, would you mind reciting the dedications for us?
That is from, oh, where do you want, which dedication you want me to recite?
Use the one by Jigten Sumgun, dedication prayer by Jigten
Okay.
Sumgun.
Let me get that.
Is in the book
I
you
marked
have.
the corner there. Sorry.
That's all right.
Look, it's on. Geez, the pages are sticking together. You ask me why. Here we go. Dedication prayer by Lord Drikung Sumgon. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind, root, and lineage lamas, divine assembly of Yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yoginis, and Dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions, leaders hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and the innate root of virtue, now result in the outwardly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Sravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Maras, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with the negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such, and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the Bardo. So Om, Ah, Om, Om, Ah, Om, Om, Ah, Om.
Oh.
May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Thank you all very, very much for staying with us for all this. And we'll continue next Monday, as I said, and maybe we can be able to finish that within the month of January. And then we'll go on to talking about the King of Samadhi Sutra. In the meantime, I'm going to send you this conversation, and I sent the one that Kunga and I were talking about. I already sent it to you. If you need it again, I can send it again, but I sent it last week, so it's if you haven't deleted it, it's probably in your email.
Thank you. I have it. Yeah.
Thank you.
French, thank you very much for everything. And Bernie, thank you very much. And Kunga, thank you very much.
You're welcome. See you next week. Thank you.
Okay.
See you all.
Thank you.
See
Thank you all.
everybody
Have a
next
good
week.
weekend. Happy New Year. Be safe.
Yeah, celebrate New Year's together. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. See you.
Thank
Bye.
you. All right. Bye-bye.